President Trump is showcasing American strength after unveiling a whole new fleet of battleships yesterday. The president also displaying that strength in the face of the communist leader Nicolás Maduro. The president was asked about his plans for Maduro.
Ultimate goal in Venezuela to force Maduro from power?
Well, I think it probably would. I can't tell that. That's up to him what he wants to do. I think it would be smart for him to do that. But again, we're going to find out. Look, Venezuela did terrible things to the United States. They sent hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people into our open border.
On that note, a certain activist judge has now ordered the Trump administration to allow Venezuelan migrants who were deported to El Salvador to be let back into the U.S. Well, the judge's name, you guessed it, it's James Boasberg. This challenge is brought by a group of men who were deported back in March under the Alien Enemies Act. The Trump administration has until January to secure the return of the more than 100 Venezuelan men. Alex, what's going to happen?
Well, one of the things I don't understand is they could obtain lawyers. I would think it would be easier and maybe more cost effective to have them work with lawyers where they are instead of bringing them back here to have that sort of process. That's one issue that comes to mind. The other is, Boasberg has been, we've talked about him, about his planes you referenced, Daniel. This, also the idea of Arctic frost, how he signed off on some of those surveillance of lawmakers. I am kind of excited or interested in potentially covering a judicial impeachment. And if there was ever a judge,
hold your breath.
If there was ever a judge to face that type of hearing or questions, I would think that this is judicial activism, what he has done, especially when we're talking about the idea of the cases that he's taken. Senator Eric Schmidt talked to me about the one specifically related to the planes. I think he was on vacation at the time when that came in. The case was assigned. He was not the judge on duty, but yet he took it. It's like 3 a.m. hour or something, according to the lawmakers. So I think there's a lot to look in there. And I would, the reporter in me, the legal reporter, is super interested in following that.
Michael, speaking of, Boasberg, what actions does the Trump administration have? I mean, can they appeal the ruling? What if they don't bring the 100 Venezuelan men, illegal men, back to the United States?
Well, Mercedes, they have a whole bunch of different things that they could do. One of them would be, as you just mentioned, appealing the case. They could ask for a stay, an emergency stay, which means they don't have to follow Judge Boasberg's order, which is what the technical term of what he just did was. They don't have to follow the order at all until it's finally litigated and there's a final outcome on the merits.
They could go straight to the Supreme Court on that,
exactly.
Which they would likely get a favorable outcome.
Absolutely. And to the judicial activism thing, I mean, this is a widespread issue across the United States with people both in the Northern District of California, Oregon, Chicago, Illinois, and now in D.C., which is really no surprise. I mean, there are all these different activist judges that come in and get vetted through these quote-unquote 501c3 organizations of memberships that say, how progressive am I, and how much am I going to agree with the president who puts me up for an appointment at a vacancy?
I mean, you even had that one judge that told the illegal, go out through the back door, and then she was actually charged.
Hannah Dugan, that's
she
right.
was convicted.
She was convicted.
Yeah,
she faces up to 6 years in prison. I actually covered that for this network. Yeah. And I mean, she was literally caught on a body camera saying, I told him to sneak. I had to sneak, and she's like, actually, probably shouldn't say the word sneak.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she had to
well, not only that. So we're talking about a county judge. We're talking about a district court judge. To your point, who can be overturned, likely will be. There's 600 of these. The issue really for me is how many of these lower court judges who have their jurisdiction is much smaller than what the commander in chief is. He is the executive to make these decisions. When we're talking about national security, that is really within his wheelhouse. So I expect an appeal. I expect it to be the order to be stayed. And to your point, we're going to have to watch and see what these lower court judges do. It can even be Reagan appointees. I've noticed that use certain Democratic talking points in their orders. We've talked about
the originalists. They're always looking at what
they talk about
just like Justice Kennedy,
law
right? He was
being at stake. I mean, that is coming from Schumer. That is coming from your Democrats in office, right?